Hello, MCU fans! Today we're going to take a look at new information that Marvel has revealed about Daredevil Born Again Season 2's timeline and how it might affect the overall MCU. So, lots to discuss. Let's dive right in and see what we can find out. So first, I want to make a quick update to the Phase 6 possible slate. As usual, everything in red is a Marvel movie, yellow is Marvel TV, and blue is something Sony. So, Daredevil Born Again Season 2 is coming out 24th. Can't wait, right? But we do now actually have some information about X-Men 97 Season 2 and Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man Season 2. We don't have specific dates, but Disney Plus is telling us that X-Men 97 is summer and Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man is fall. So that's pretty cool. So this is basically the Phase 6 possible slate, but now let's talk about the information we just learned about Daredevil Born Again Season 2. So an interview with the showrunner for Season 2 tells us that Fisk has won. The city is gradually being put under his boot, and we pick up with all our major players around 6 months later. Whoa, I did not see that coming. I thought Season 2 would pick up right after Season 1. No, it turns out that Kingpin will have been the mayor and, enforcing his martial law, etc., for 6 months. So it goes on to say the Fisk administration at this point has really taken hold. At the same time, there's a bubbling up of an underground. New York is being transformed. Some people might call that a rebirth. Some might call it decay. And the characters are being transformed by all of the huge political machinations. Okay, let's talk about this. So what I want to do is talk about everything happening in the MCU timeline around the end of Daredevil Born Again Season 2. Now, I am going to talk about Wonder Man, but I promise no spoilers. I'm just going to talk about the timeline at a high level. So before the end of Daredevil Season 2, we have Von Kovac announcing the Wonder Man movie. We know when it's happening because while he's making the announcement, we see these dates on this computer screen telling us it's in early April. So that would make it spring of 2027. And we know it's 2027 because they give us firm indications of how long after the Shang-Chi movie this series is taking place. And speaking of Trevor, we last saw him in Ta Lo, and keep in mind the gate to Ta Lo only opens during the Qingming Festival, which in 2027 is April 5th. So that would mean that he left Ta Lo in early April, and then we see him in the Wonder Man series heading back to LA. And at the same time, we see Simon, and Trevor for that matter, auditioning for the Wonder Man movie. All right. So that is early April. Then we move to our timeline for Daredevil Born Again Season 2. I'm not going through all of this, but the key is the final episodes are happening in April of 2027. That's when Fisk declares his martial law, right? Remember, he said curfews at 8 p.m., and the city is under martial law. So when is this happening in April? Well, according to the wiki, and I trust their calculations, they do such a good job on this, it's on April 10th. So the final episode is April 10th. So that means the lockdown in New York is happening at the same time Simon is auditioning in LA. And then in Washington, we have Ross hulking out and fighting Captain America. Because remember, we get that date, and that's April 16th. So my word, a lot going down in LA, Washington, and New York, basically at the same time. Okay, so at the end of Brave New World, we see Sam visiting Ross at the raft, and we know we're still in April because notice Sam's arm is in a sling from the injuries he received in the movie. Then we go to the post-credit scene, and we've now moved probably into May, because notice that when Sam visits the leader, his arm is no longer in a sling. It's healed enough that he doesn't need the sling, right? So we're in May of 2027. Then we go back to Wonder Man, so we're now in July of 2027 when the Wonder Man movie filming begins. We know this is in July because we learned that Trevor arrived in Los Angeles a few months ago. Remember, that was when he came back from the airport in April, so we're probably in a July timeframe. And then we move to October 2027 when the Thunderbolts enter the void. Now, this is really important because 6 months after April means Daredevil Born Again Season 2 is happening somewhere around the Thunderbolts movie, and we'll talk more about that in a second. But it's important to note, Val is telling us the Avengers are not walking through that door, right? We have no reliable heroes. So even though back in April, Ross told Sam that I want you, Captain America, to help me rebuild the Avengers, Sam has not yet done it by October 2027, which also means there's no formal Avengers team to take on Fisk, right? Not that they would. I mean, I don't know whether they would get involved in New York politics, but there are no Avengers at this point. So that's interesting to note. All right, why am I saying Thunderbolts happens in October 2027? Well, that's because we see leaves on the trees here, and again here, And again, here, this is very intentional. I mean, sometimes you can't really trust the weather, but this looks like they actually artificially made these trees look like fall. So I think they want us to understand that this is happening in the fall time frame. Then we jump to July of 2028 when the Wonder Man movie debuts. We know that it happens in July timeframe because on this email, we're told that Kovac is set to direct next summer's biggest hit. So in other words, the movie will be coming out a year later in the summertime of 2028. And then I want to be really careful on this scene, but Simon goes on a secret mission. That's all I'm going to say. And it's in the September of 2028 timeframe because it's happening around fall timeframe in LA. So I could see September, maybe even October, but we're basically in the fall of 2028. And then it is worth mentioning at some point, maybe 2027, maybe 2028, we see that post-credit scene from the Guardians movie with the new team going into action. So it's hard to figure out when this is happening, because notice, Groot is huge. He's definitely grown since the movie, but Phyla-Vell has not seemed to age much. And of course, Rocket has a short lifespan, so we can't be too far in the future. But I think we can confidently say this is happening before Doomsday. So anyway, let me know your thoughts on when you think this might be occurring, 2027 or 2028. Then finally, we move to the Thunderbolts post-credit scene, which we're told is 14 months after the movie, which places us in December 2028, which of course is when they see the spaceship coming into the 616 universe. All right, so I think that helps us actually place Doomsday as well, because that scene with the spaceship is one of the scenes in Doomsday. So I think Doomsday is December of 2028. And then one last thing to mention about the timeline, we now know that Brand New Day is happening around the December timeframe of 2028 because 4 years have gone by since we last caught up with our friendly neighborhood hero. And of course, the last time we saw him was in No Way Home, December of 2024. In fact, that's him swinging over New York. That was really the final scene he was in. So that would place us in December of 2028, right around the time frame of Doomsday. So wow, what an interesting timeline, right? So to bring it all together, this is the dates that I think each of the entries currently on Disney Plus are happening. Now, I didn't talk about the Fantastic Four timeline because it's in a different universe, but it will eventually sync up with Doomsday. All right, so if we add in the new entries that are still coming out this year, we have Daredevil Born Again Season 2. That's around the October 2027 timeframe. We still don't know when the Punisher special presentation is happening, but my guess is it's going to be closer to Brand New Day, so maybe like summer or fall of 2028. And then, of course, Spider-Man Brand New Day, December 2028, and then we have no idea about Vision Quest. So yeah, man, what an interesting time in the MCU during 2027 and 2028. And of course, all eyes will be on the season-by-season breakdown that Marvel has put together. Unfortunately, it has not been updated since January 22nd. Come on, Marvel. I even called the Disney Plus helpline, asking them, to see if they can get this website updated. But man, we need it updated when Season 2 comes out because we need to know where Born Again Season 2 sits in the timeline in relation to Thunderbolts. It could be before, it could be after. So let's talk about that. So originally I wondered how Daredevil Born Again Season 2 would fit within Brave New World and Ross being president, and of course Thunderbolts with Val, running the Thunderbolts team. Well, we now know that Born Again Season 2 is happening well after Brave New World. So Ross is in the raft, he's a non-factor, so let's get rid of him. So now the question is, does Daredevil Born Again Season 2 end before, or does it end after the Thunderbolts? That is the big question. Now, my guess is that they will wrap up Born Again Season 2 prior to the Thunderbolts. I mean, if you think about it, that's the cleanest way to go. We have no overlap between the two, and we don't have to worry about any crossovers, etc. And remember, they said about 6 months, which makes me think we're probably in September of 2027. But for the minute, let's talk about how interesting it would be if Daredevil Born Again Season 2 runs past the Thunderbolts, so it doesn't end until after the Thunderbolts movie. Could we get cameos from the Thunderbolts in Daredevil Born Again Season 2? Nah, that's not going to happen, right? There's no way. That would be crazy. Maybe Elena. I could see that. She's supposed to be in Brand New Day. Maybe she shows up. Or what about Val? I mean, that'd be cool if Val showed up. I mean, she's been in TV shows before. She was in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Maybe she'll show up in Daredevil Born Again Season 2. And here's the craziest thing. If Daredevil Born Again Season 2 extends past the Thunderbolts movie in the timeline, could we actually see the Void taking over New York during the series? And could we actually see everyone's shame room, including Matt's shame room, which could explain how Foggy is returning? Is Foggy potentially returning in his shame room? Now, Honestly, I don't see this happening. These are probably flashbacks, and that's all there is to it. But wouldn't it be wild if they actually included the shame rooms in Daredevil Born Again Season 2? So you can see there are a lot of interesting possibilities with how this timeline could play out. So now is the time when I ask you, what do you think about this? How do you think Season 2 will fit in the timeline? Will it be before Thunderbolts, after Thunderbolts, and are there even more things to consider than I've mentioned in this video? Leave your thoughts, because you know I love to read and respond to everything. And don't forget, February contest, be a subscriber, leave a comment, and you could win a book or a steelbook. And we have the membership option in case you're interested in that. And I always love to mention the Discord. Notice we're doing our Doomsday Countdown watch every day listed here at 2 p.m. and 7 p.m. Eastern when we watch a different movie or show as we head towards the December 18, 2026 release of Doomsday. So we have 2,600 members across the globe, conversations 24/7, and I'll leave a pinned comment so you can join. Also, if you don't mind, like this video, subscribe if you haven't already. You can check out more content, and we'll all continue to enjoy the ever-growing, the ever-changing Marvel Cinematic Universe.